Um, Please say aye if you're here. Nancy Wren here. Nancy James,
Here.
Shelley Dawson,
Here.
Bill Stockard,
Here.
and we got Marcia Algier,
Here.
and George Meservey is with us as well.
Yes.
And Brad Hino is a guest of ours. And I'm looking for, Andrea's not here either.
Fran's here.
Fran
Yes,
is
she is.
here.
Good, Fran, you got here.
Here.
And Fran McLennan?
Here.
Good, but good to see you.
Andrea.
Andrea's here too.
Andrea.
Yeah, trouble with the link, sorry.
Okay, well, I checked them all a minute ago and now I see you all here, so welcome, Andrea Reed. Good. Okay, before we get started in our regular meeting, on behalf of the Affordable Housing Committee, I would like to thank the voters of the town of Orleans for their support of affordable housing this May. The CPC grants for housing, for the Housing Trust, the community outreach through the CPC granting, CPC bonding for Penrose, Cape Cod 5, and the annual support from the warrant article. I want to also thank the committee members here today for their hard work, and the trust board and the select board for their collegial approach to this important topic. And finally, I want to thank Shelley Dawson for her service on this committee, because her service comes to an end at this month. And she has been a wonderful participant on this group, and we will miss her dearly.
Yeah.
But we're going to get you to contribute to this meeting, and we will go on.
Thank you very much. And you know, I'll continue to be an advocate for all that you're doing.
We hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
Oh, we're going to miss you on the committee. I'll just say that personally. All right. Okay, I'm going to read, sort of review. I sent you all an email prior to this meeting because there's been some conversations going on between myself and Alan McLennan, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust Board, and also the Trust Board members regarding the need to update our community housing survey and study. And I just want to put on the record that this study has been very useful to us and instrumental in the type of projects that are currently underway in our town. It's also been a big part of our successful messaging. In talking with Alan the other day, we discussed what might be more useful as a way to capture in real time the data available through town statistics, realtors, and economic indicators. These annual data points can then inform our study and lead us in the necessary direction without necessarily having to do a whole new study. So this conversation was had by the two of us, and we talked about Brad and his possibilities. And then our town assessor, Brad Hino, did a wonderful job at the Orleans Citizens Forum presentation last month. And so we've asked him to come today and just give us some idea of what he might be available to do to help us within his regular job description, not to have to give him extra work, but within his job description that can maybe help us update our study and give us some direction on where we are going. So I asked him if he would come, and he was very gracious to do that. So Brad, you want to unmute yourself?
So I'm not, again, when you asked me to come to this, I wasn't sure what it is you're looking for from me. And I still don't think I have a clear picture of what it is. And you mentioned this community housing study. This is something in the time I've been here, I don't think I've seen. I'd like to see that first of all, just to see, because you mentioned just now, improving upon it without having to write a whole new one.
Exactly. Let me
So-
give you a little background. So this study is on our website, on the town website under affordable housing, and was done in 2017. And that's some of the reason that people are thinking it might be getting old. But as I said earlier, it did inform the choice, which was the select board's agreed with, to have 100 new housing units in 10 years for this town. That was the goal from that study, 85 rentals and 15 home ownership. And they based a lot of that on census data, wages and employment, AMI numbers, cost burden numbers, possible avenues for growth and funding, where housing could come from. So there was a lot of work was done on this project in terms of where we could go with that. So, so I sort of we haven't had a discussion about this prior to you, but that we wanted to get it started anyway. Our committee hasn't had a discussion about what we want to do. So this is our discussion today to see what kind of ideas would come out of it. It's sort of come up sort of generically, and we're just sort of, not generically, organically, I think, and try to see what we can do to use what we have versus having to recreate something totally new. And you know, what the trends are, what the inventory is,
Okay,
you know, full-time residents, part-time residents, where the real estate's going, reports that you give, things like that.
okay.
So I'm going to sort of open the floor, hopefully, to my compatriots here, and they're going to give us some more ideas in terms of what they would be thinking about this. This isn't the first time we've thought about it, just the first time we've come together about it. So do I have anybody who wants to jump in?
I would just give my support to this idea of something that's done annually. And I was thinking about the table that was in the handout. I think Marcia created that table that showed for each of the AMI categories what the need was in Orleans based on income, household income. And if that was updated every year, that would be, I think, a useful aid, because we would know a little better in each category what the need is. And then we'd be able to look at opportunities against that need and see which ones pop out as more appealing or whatever. That was just one thought that I had, but I really like the idea of something updated every year. I think that's a really good idea. And data points to help us along as they change.
Nancy,
Yes, Marcia.
maybe what we can do is break it down, and what would be helpful to gather, to get from Brad is what is collected on a routine basis by the office. And so part of it is information on housing stock. So obviously value. And I don't know if you have information on let me put it there. So there's a bunch of information on the stock itself, the actual inventory. And then there's a bunch of information on who occupies the stock. That is the nature of the occupant. Are they permanent full-time? Are they seasonal? Are they renting? Are they home owning? That kind of thing.
Mhm.
So part of it is what you would collect on a regular basis, not anything extra that we could get maybe on an annual basis and see whether it updates any of the numbers, which we rely on in terms of what renters are rent burdened. You know, what's home ownership costs and who is being more and more left out of the market. So it's really that kind of information that you would normally be collecting that might update our need issues.
Mhm. So sale prices I collect constantly. I refresh property data every year for properties we haven't, either that where a building permit was done, where something sells, or if it's something we haven't been to otherwise within the last 10 years. State law, well, the Department of Revenue requires that we keep up with field work. And a lot of what I take in is physical characteristics. So it's lot sizes, styles, ages, you know, that's really where I go. Style is the big one. Condition, conditions, qualities, you know, number of beds, baths, physical characteristics are what I am primarily concerned with in terms of the data that I keep. Other than that, again, sales prices. We update sale prices several times a day as things get recorded at the registry. So something along the lines of, you know, just based on where you are now. And again, my residency split is my best guess based on which properties have second home personal property accounts attached to them. So it's not I hesitate to call it official, but because my records always fluctuate with who decides to move here at what point of the year. But that, like how much of our housing stock, let's say in condos, is occupied by a resident, by a domiciled owner, let's say, versus how much isn't. How many single families are versus aren't, multifamilies. That's data that I update that annually just for my own needs, just to kind of keep an eye on things. I just feel like that's good info to have on hand. If that's something that's helpful, that's certainly something I can update you all with every year.
Do you keep that on a spreadsheet or do you keep that as on a graph or something like that?
On a
Is there graph?
spreadsheet usually,
Yeah. You can
but I
graph
can,
it.
I can present the data any number of ways, whatever's easiest to digest.
It'd be interesting to see them as trends a little
Sure.
bit, see where
Yep.
where we've been and where we're going.
Sure.
So that would be something that would be helpful, my visual. Fran,
I know even before we created the trust, our committee was talking about how do we find out what's going on with the moderately priced homes in our community, and how can we figure programs that would help to save the moderately priced homes for year-round occupancy by people who could afford them. And so I just think if we could focus the goal of the data on the moderately priced, all the other is information that's interesting, but I think if we could track the moderately priced homes, say anything under 400,000,
Okay.
and the categories that we were talking about just now, the condo versus single family, year-round versus seasonal, rental versus ownership, length of ownership might be interesting. Whether something is rented year-round or rented on a short-term rental basis. All that information would allow us to track what's going on with the houses that we are hoping to preserve for our town. So I like the idea, that, Brad, of things that you were saying, because practically all of what you just mentioned would contribute to that. And then the other somehow different thing that we might want to consider tracking is the ADUs. We have worked to make it easier by right for people to build smaller units on their properties and to rent them hopefully year-round. And we've never really known whether or not that program has accomplished what we had hoped it would do. So if we could somehow track the number of ADUs that are being built, and then actually what's happening with them,
interesting.
that kind of information I think would be helpful.
Thank you, Fran. Anybody else? Andrea?
Actually, it was a statistic that I think Marcia created, but I don't know if Brad or George fed into the creation of it, where a town, I guess maybe it wasn't a town meeting, but you were able to isolate, Marcia, the number of families at risk in town. And that's a very compelling statistic. I don't know how you got to that, but
You
the
mean
number,
At risk in terms of rent burden risk?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, that comes out of the study. And that's an analysis of incomes of people who live in it compared to living in it. So I don't know that Brad, you have any of that information. I don't think that's in an assessor's office kind of thing.
I don't get, the only rental information I get is from commercial properties as part of our income approach to their valuations. For residential property, I don't know who's renting what.
Right. So you really don't collect very much occupant information. I mean, the seasonal would be very interesting.
Yeah, that's
to
as,
the
and
extent- yeah,
yes, and even then, that's, again, like I said, it's a best guess I can make.
right, right. It's
But as
still
far
too-
as who's
yeah.
renting year round, for instance, I don't get any information about that.
So just a question, Brad, in like the mixed use commercial where there's residential above or below or whatever, do you have is that tappable from your database, or do you have to open up all the records, each of the records, and then sort out how many units are in each one?
I'm not. We don't go by units really. It's by square feet. We assess it on square footage. So if it's 75% commercial, 25 residential, that's all my record indicates. if there's a certain number of residential units within that commercial, within that
Mhm.
space, I mean, we can note it. I just did I just did a review of all of our commercial property, and I did the mixed uses also, and you can't get into most of them, but I tried to kind of guess when I went to a property. I had to shift some of the percentages because they're completely out of date.
Right.
But you know, some of the properties that we had as mixed use for years, it's been straight residential for 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
So again, for per unit, no, but I try to guess, kind of say, all right, well, it's only 25%, and I can see where all the commercial space is, so it must be this much. And I'll ask the people on the first floor. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
It's just I have to try to guess, really.
Yeah, so we don't really know every apartment in town per se
No.
numerically,
I
which
don't
is fine.
anyway.
You know, your purpose is they're paying their fair share of taxes, which is what your office does.
Yeah.
One other question. I've been thinking about the short-term rentals because it is really a part of the problem that we're encountering. Do you know if the state will give out address data on the registered short-term rentals that are paying taxes? I didn't ask this a year ago because COVID came along and we didn't know what was going to happen with the system.
Do I know?
Do you know that?
Oh, I have no idea. I have nothing to do with what's short-term rental or not.
Maybe I'll work through the finance office and see if they get that information.
Yeah, there must be something, because if they're all registered, there's got to be a database somewhere.
I just
Yeah.
don't know if it's public or not.
Yeah.
Right. What about Fran's point? Do you track ADUs, accessory dwellings?
So I think I've spoken with George about this, because George has asked me about the accessory dwelling units, and the way it's I've tried to come up with a way, and I have to talk with my software provider about a code I can use to flag a property as having an accessory dwelling unit. My predecessor didn't really do much with it. I can make a reasonable guess on a lot of the properties. I code, like if it's a garage with a room above it, let's say, I have a special code for that. I can pull all of those and see which ones. I don't know if they're renting them necessarily,
Hmm.
but there is. I mean, that's when we do a visit at a property and I go to it and I see a garage and I see a staircase up to it and I go up a staircase and I can kind of see, okay, well, there's a parking spot. Yeah, something's probably there might be something up there, but if I don't talk to the owner, I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, a lot of what I do out there is my best guess if I can't get good data from somebody physically on site. And with a town that's 50-50 seasonals and year rounds, it's hard to get them sometimes. But I can certainly, that's something I'm going to work on. Maybe not this and then not anytime soon, because we're in revaluation right now, and that's kind of eating my time up. But that is a goal of mine, is to find out a way to be able to get something on all the properties in town that I can flag it and say, this is how many properties have an ADU on it. That's something I want to work on with our software vendor.
Can you track can you track the number of residential units or something by zoning category? So we
Sure.
can know how many in Village Center, how many in industrial, whatever.
Sure. Yep, I can track
So
that.
you can have a count of that, and
Yeah.
you could then see if there's any changes in that count.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
From year to year, I can do that. Yep.
I was going to say that this partnership could be really interesting because, planning is working on changing zoning and we talk about adding housing, but in reality, we don't really have something to put the whole thing together to say, is this working or where is it working? And so adding this component to our knowledge base could be really helpful, Brad.
Yeah, if it'll come down to permit activity really over the last several years, if people are adding these dwelling units on. I track every permit and I visit all of them. I have for the last 3 years now. I can certainly, and I can go back far with that, just to see if there's any trends in certain parts of town or in certain zoning districts, let's say. That's something I can work up. Yep.
You mentioned seasonal. So do you regularly track the number, especially if it's changed from seasonal to full year and vice versa?
Every year
Yeah,
I track
okay.
that.
Okay.
Yep. It's kind of it's a hot topic, not
Yeah.
just here, but all along the Outer Cape.
Right.
So that is something I do check. Yep.
Any
And
other?
again, I'm sorry, Nancy. Again, we're all of our assessors, every one of us, we do it the same way, and we're all just making our best guess at it.
Anyone else have anything? Bill, Rich? Anyone else? Shelley?
I have a question. Somebody I've seen on some websites keeps similar kinds of data, or some of the data that would be helpful for us in terms of the number of people who are renting, number of people who are owning, what the shortfall is. And I think it's the Cape Cod Commission, but I'm not real sure. And they seem to do it by town on at least an annual basis, because I've seen reports from other towns as I've been doing some research. Does anybody know for sure who that is that does it?
Well, the American Community Survey, which is part of census, would have rent
Yeah.
versus
No,
own.
it's a local organization. It's a Cape Cod group that's doing it.
It's the Cape Cod Commission, I think, Shelley.
You think it's the commission? That's what I thought, but it seems to me that because they do that information on a regular basis and they do it by town, it seems, we probably would benefit from getting in touch with them.
Yeah, how do they get that data every year?
I'm not sure.
I bet they get it from the American Community Survey.
They could. Not familiar with that other organization, but I just know that what we're taught, the kind of data that we're looking for, and that is in our housing study, that I think people are reacting to being a bit old, since it's 2017 statistics, that would be one way we can kind of compare and update our statistics, if we could get the statistics for Orleans from the last Cape Cod Commission report.
I believe that it's an interactive data set that you can click on and call up different aspects under each criteria. And you plug it in and you get the bar graph and you get the numbers. That's pretty interesting.
Mhm. So then one of us could access it to do that,
Mhm.
in following the old housing study format.
I'm not sure they get the detail, the level of detail that we're looking for.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think there is interesting information there.
Nancy, can I just ask a question of Brad? Brad, when you have you've got all your data in front of you, are there any translations of the data in terms of spending or economic impact that come from those statistics? For instance, when we do that switch from seasonal to year-round resident, is there predictability with spending in the town other than tax implications?
Nothing that's nothing native to it. It's no, I think is the short answer.
Does that give you a little bit of direction, Brad, of what
Yes.
we're looking
Yep.
for?
Yep.
I
Yep.
think what we want to be able to do is put our hand on that material when it's necessary to speak to it. Sometimes we call you and George looks things up, but I think what we want to do is be able to, use it in terms of our planning for the next whatever years. So, and do you need a copy of the actual study, or will you be able to
I actually-
access it online?
I found it. Yep. I found it
Okay.
online. It's 155 pages. I'll try to get through that in relatively quick
It's-
order.
The executive summary does a pretty good job, and there's some good tables in there that I think you can just probably skim it, and
Sure.
I think you'll find what you need on that. All right, I don't want to use up your time after work anymore, but I really did appreciate you stopping in and listening to us, and hopefully helping us in the future as we go through this together. I
Sure.
think the more the town works together and the groups work together, it's showing that we get more done that way.
Happy to
So
help
thank you
any
very
way I
much.
can.
Have a good evening.
And you all too. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's a little bit exciting, right? I think we'll get some more data for that. The other thing, I just wanted to, the housing study update, sort of came out of this, the Affordable Housing Trust Board. So I wanted to be sure that we, as a group, had recommendations for that. And I think that's where Ellen and I were going with our discussion, that we don't have to recreate something that's already working for us, but we need to just build on it. And I want sort of like to get a consensus from this group that you agree with this philosophy and plan. And if you don't, this would be a good time to speak up against it. So.
Well, I think it's
Yes.
a good idea. I think, as you said, mentioned in your email to us, is to, and working with Brad and others to try to get the, real-time data. There is so much data in that study. And like you mentioned, that's, done in 2017. And I think it would be very helpful that, conditions, as we all know, have changed dramatically. So whatever information we can get on, renters and ownership, and even, AMI data that's in there probably obviously needs to be updated. So I think rather than, as you said in the beginning, rewrite a whole new report, I think it's just a matter of going through that data that we have found to be helpful over the last 4 years and make sure it does reflect current conditions as much as possible. So I agree with I agree with the philosophy, as you and Alan have talked about, definitely.
Okay. All right. To be continued. Okay. Okay, the second thing I wanted to do was to check off the box of the charge, because we put this on our agenda for a long time, and I think we're at the point where we could just do it. Everybody got a copy of the 2010 charge, and then the updated summary that George had done for 2019 for the guiding principles book. And I went through it and gave you some notes about what was changed and what was the same. And I would like to see if there's anything we want to add, take out, agree with, disagree with, or just have a discussion about this and hopefully come up with another draft that we can all agree on and put as our final draft for this, this period of time. We've been wanting to update this for a while, and since the Affordable Housing Trust Board has been established, it's more important than ever that we have ours clearly outlined and they have theirs clearly outlined. So comments about maybe we can go back, maybe we can look at the improved one, yes. The one that's the 2019. Yes. Do you have any general comments? Maybe I should, before I do that, any general comments before I go? No.
I certainly agree with what you've provided to us and what George has provided as far as, what you removed or what is suggested be removed from the earlier charge, because most of those that are being suggested to be removed, relate to the housing trust fund that has now been established. So I certainly agree with all of those. And I think what's being, I like the new ones, what's being added. I don't know if you want to get into the details of each of these that are be changes or questions, but the only question I had on the new ones in number 8, maintain statistical indicators of housing needs. I guess maybe that I'm answering my own question based on our previous discussion with Brad, is that, my question was, how do we do that on a regular basis? I think it's important that it be maintained, but how to actually maintain those indicators on a regular basis. I'm not sure how that would be accomplished.
Well, this was the first step in trying to figure it out, but I don't exactly, I think that's probably something I think we can agree that we need to do that, right? And so the process, none of this really has any process to it. This is more, this draft charge is what you're asked to do. Probably in future meetings, we could actually do a little bit of looking at these and see what we do for all of these. I think it might be interesting and see if we're actually doing what we, what we're supposed to be doing, but that's not the purpose of this activity right now. But I think it's a good outline for us to know that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing in the group.
Mhm.
So the other one was added was provide for public outreach, community engagement. So that we obviously believe in that one. And the other new one was collaborate with other housing agencies and groups in pursuit of these goals, which I think came up because of CDP and all of the groups that we're working with, Mass Housing Partnership, PAC, all the places we're working with to try to make this a reality for Cape Cod. So I think those are all three good ones. The
Nancy,
ones-
can I give you a comment?
Certainly.
There, in the preamble, which we kind of breezed past, there is a reference to the 10% affordable housing as a goal. I think that is a goal that is probably pretty close to being in our rearview mirror and probably has very little to do with, well, I think it's worthy of mention to maintain a 10% or more for the purposes of town autonomy. But the goal is different now. The goal is to address the housing needs of the community with regard to young residents, people of a variety of ages, and that which is necessary to support a vibrant economy, I think. So I think
Yes.
maybe a 3-sentence, statement in there would be useful to set people so that nobody can say, well, we're at the 10% goal, we're done.
Done.
And,
Yeah.
and that was a reasonable goal for 20 years, but you've achieved it on your watch, so.
That's pretty exciting. Very happy about that. That's a really good point. And I would like to, were you reading something or were you just saying that, George? Were you reading something? No.
Yeah, it's in the.
Whatever. Well, I know what you were reading on the 10%, but what you just added, that additional word, had you written that already or you just? were
No, I
saying-
just said it,
Okay, well, but we have.
gone, whatever it was.
We have this written down in several other places. So yes, I would agree with that. Marcia,
Yeah, this is something that I've said before, but partly is updating the housing study updates current needs. But when you're talking about workforce and labor force, to me, that's projection of labor force. So part of it is what data is there on trends in labor force needs by wage levels over time, and how do you project that need into the future given economic development goals and trends? And then you add that to current needs to say, we need more workforce housing of 2 and 3 bedrooms for 80 to 100 to 120%, or whatever you decide your goal is there. But to some extent, that's very missing in the current study. So part of the update of the study is to add data that's not in there now. And so you do update the current need from whatever sources you're going to get, but you have to add a whole nother thing if you're going to labor force housing.
I hear what you're saying. Are you talking about putting another sentence in this our charge as well?
Well, the question is, do you want to have as an explicit and formal part of this committee's charge, looking into the needs of labor force into the future and doing the analysis and indicators and goal setting and strategy implementation around that, which is a whole bunch of work. It's not just a little thing.
Ken, we're having an economic development person. What is this? How does that connect with our economic outlook plans, George? Your consultant.
Well, we have to get a consultant before.
Well, I know it. Would that be what he would? Is that what the consultant would do? Because we don't want to take on that job if that was that.
I think sort of a strategic business development plan for the downtown that takes into account the sensitivities and interests of Orleans and its residents is what we're looking for. These two issue areas are obviously interrelated in lots of directions. So maybe we can get some of that data out of into an economic development plan that can be referenced and used in a housing plan. But the bigger question is, do you want to step into that realm of workforce housing in a formal way? We've had a lot of discussions that work around the periphery of it.
And is that,
Can we?
part of it? Are
Can
we,
we? Are we allowed to
Oh, yeah.
with this affordable housing chart, with our goal? Yes. Okay. I think even when I wrote my report for the annual town meeting, we work hard on encouraging workforce development, not implementing it. So I think, remember we were talking about that? And that's, do we want workforce into our charge?
I think you can add the term, but not mean it, not
Not
make
mean
it
it.
synonymous with a certain income level. Workforce just means the people work. So it could be a family that meets your 80% goal, but you know, there's 2 workers, et cetera. And so they need 3-bedroom house. So your proportion of number of the size of your units may differ, or location, or, you know, close to transportation or whatever. So it partially informs affordable, but it also talks about what community housing, I guess, is the name around here, up to 100. But even then, if you're going to get involved with tax credit projects, they may go and do like Penrose, up to 120% of median. So it's, I think you have to distinguish between understanding the need, having data, and having broad objectives. And we're going to fund a project to subsidize 120%. That's different. I'm not suggesting that.
Well, that would be the trust anyway. That would move to the trust. We would learn from that information, but present it to the trust, correct?
Well, even the trust, I don't think they're supposed to do
Maybe.
120%, right?
Well, I mean, we're not going to subsidize it. So,
No, but I'm talking about what you're doing is collecting data, which informs your housing picture. It doesn't say we're going to go out tomorrow and find money for 120% median people. That's all. I'm just trying to make a distinction between collecting information and understanding your housing picture, and then deciding as part of strategy, you're actually going to develop a program for home ownership for 120% and finding money for it. That's an entirely different issue. Although you may decide you want to do that, you know, and so therefore, what does that mean? I'm just thinking that I've heard so much lately about the need for family housing for our workforce, but we don't have numbers to say what is that need and how fast is it growing.
and is that under our charge, or I'm not sure where?
well, if it's for a need, then I think it would be under our charge. How to find out that information is the question. I don't know how we would find out that need aside from
Well, now you
says it.
kind of getting into, I don't want to say into the weeds, but you're kind of going back into what you would explain, you know, what we should be doing is looking at the overall charge and not getting into how we're going to accomplish all those things.
Okay.
I like to go back. I wish George had written it down. I hope his memory is good enough to remember what he actually said to be added to the charge, because I agree with him and what he said about, you know, it's leading out with a sentence about the equal to at least 10%. And I think people, you know, can argue, say, well, you reach your 10%. So I think what, you know, the additional wording is needed there. I'm not sure how much of that we want to get into as far as getting data for workforce housing and all of that detail. I'm not sure. I'm just commenting.
My understanding is that the 10% was just kind of pulled out of a hat as a way to get towns to commit to something, to start working on the issue. But it doesn't, the 10% doesn't express what the need is. It allows us to say we've met a goal,
Right.
and we've met that goal that was put in place, and we're doing it. I think we are doing it better than many other towns, but it doesn't, we don't know whether the 10% meets our need or not. I think that's what Marcia is saying. We need more data to understand what the need is. And I I'm just wondering is, do we need a consultant to help us construct what data we need? And get us started with something that then we can continue on an annual basis that defines what the need is. And it does seem like that what Marcia talks about as workforce housing is one of our big needs. It seems like that's something that we are missing because of the, because of who we are, because we are such a seasonal place and housing prices are so based on off-Cape salaries and things like that's a big issue for us. But we don't know. It seems to me that we don't know how much do we need. So how much can we be pushing? What kind of opportunities should we be looking for?
Let's go back to the 10%, which was originally designed to eliminate unfriendly 40Bs. It was a 40B proposition to get people to build. So I think that's one thing we have to sort of go out, and I actually got 3 questions about this after the I put this on my agenda for next meeting, but we can, since it's come up, the 10%, I got 3 questions following the town meeting in that week. Why do you need all this? Because you're almost at your 10%. And trying to put that in a nutshell and explain it to people is tricky. And I know we try with our definitions, Fran, and we did that, but I think it's really important that we get this part of our messaging, that what that 10% really means, because I think it's been misconstrued in terms of what it means for the housing needs of our town. So this is a really key point. As I said, it came up, people are confused about what it means. And I really think George is on the right track to, let's move this along and get this, but with the footnote that we as a committee probably need to put something on our website or something that explains this a little bit clearer, because I think it's obviously clear, and I know a lot about it. And even I was trying to talk to the person, and it's like, it's tricky. So I think we need to really get that message out too. We're good at messaging. Yes, Shelley.
One of the things we can emphasize is that that's at least 10%, not that that's the minimum goal, not the maximum goal, even as it was stated before. So I agree with George. We need to go beyond that, in our statement. But
I like the word maintain, George. Maintain at least 10%. But I think we need to really move that dialogue along, and this is a good opportunity to do it in this charge. Is there anything else that we took out of the old one that everybody's okay? What?
Nancy, I wanted to comment on this conversation before we move on. Marcia has repeatedly talked about the need for our aspirational wishes for our plan. And yes, as much data as we can get to inform our aspirational plan, what we want, is one thing, but I think it's going to be limited data points to actually nail that down. And I think in many ways it is an aspiration for how do people living in town want their town to be? What kind of town are we looking toward? And I think that it's input that we can get from conversation. And I think in our charge should be some mention of are promoting community conversation around housing wishes and needs, not necessarily from data, yes, data, but also what do people want? What do they hope for? And that I think we have a great opportunity to begin that conversation when we're talking about Governor Prince, because if the site of Governor Prince is going to have some housing on it, I think that our initiating conversation about, okay, well, what kind of housing? For whom? And what should it look like? And just hearing that from people in town so that the conversations or the questions that come to us, zing, are in a context of a mutual conversation, not just points of view coming at us. individually. So
I think that's a good goal for our next phase here. And I do believe, we just got additional community outreach money from CPC, and I think we should really seriously consider how to get that conversation going, because it's important. And yes, Andrea.
Just to build on that thought, because I've been struggling with the kind of workforce and your charge as the Affordable Housing Committee. But if we paraphrase this or looked at aspirationally at right now, Orleans is one of the oldest demographic, if not the oldest demographic in the state as far as towns go. So is part of your aspiration as not only is to be the expert on housing in general, the resource for the community, but is part of your aspiration to reconsider or change that needle a little bit? So if you wanted to lower that age point, what would you have to provide in terms of jobs and housing? And you guys might be the specialists on housing. And what's your view about affordable versus attainable housing? I think there might be some comment about that and some philosophy about how Orleans as a community does housing. Because right now, Orleans has predominantly taken advantage of course, the federal income streams to do housing, but is that the way we want to continue to do housing in the future? And I know that we've talked at the select board level in terms of, well, that we just slid to the other half of that 50% year-round, mark. Is it a goal to, so I guess I'm looking at translating past goals of the housing study and allowing for some new testing out new goals, like is a goal maybe to shift that back to to greater than 50% year-round housing stock as part of your goal, or lowering the demographic, the age number that's the median or the average age of an Orleans resident, and having conversations around those goals with housing might kind of tease out a fresh look at where you come at your charge. That's all.
Marcia, quick.
Yeah,
Marcia,
quick.
you
Let me
were
just
saying- you were-
clarify.
you were
I
the
wasn't
same-
here. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You both raised your hand at the same moment.
Okay. I wasn't here when you set the goal, but it's never been clear to me where the 100 units came from. The 100 units was not based on 10%, right?
Right.
It had nothing to do with 10%, as I understand it. But you have a goal of 100 units. You may achieve the 100 units very soon. Therefore, your goal of 100 units by 2018 will be, quote, done. Now, I think it's absolutely clear just from the needs, that's nowhere near meeting even current needs. So what's your next goal? What's the next 10 years going to look like? So at the least, don't you have to sort of come to grips with what your new goal will be?
I don't think we can set that goal. I think the study helped us set the goal for this, but I think that goes back to the community discussion. Once again, we don't really know at this point. We were pretty secure, and the select board approved it, that the need for the rentals was pretty clear in the recommendation. The study was clear. No one really questioned that. We said, yes, for sure. That's a goal that we can work toward and meet, and we are doing that. But I think
10% was never your goal, right?
no, our goal came out of the study when the recommendation was the 100 units from the study based on the needs of the people the numbers that she looked at. So I think we never questioned whether that was good, because we certainly knew that was a lovely number, but it wasn't what we really needed in the future. But it was something we could wrap our mind around, to say 100 units. And now we are really getting close to that in theory anyway, and step by step. So, but I think the next question goes back to what Fran was saying and somewhat what Andrea was saying, but I don't think we have the ability to predict exactly what what the town is going to need without input from the town. I mean, we can say we want younger people and we want more jobs and we want this, but I think that's that's a nice thing to want, but I don't think that we can implement that just because we want it. So I think that this stage where we are right now is another time to step back and get more information. Maybe we need another survey, or we need another something, or another, maybe we can have a meeting with real people in real time sometime in the fall to really have a discussion with people and sort of find out, do some focus groups or something. I think it might be time for that. But going back to the charge, I think we need to put something into one of these lines that encourages that, because number 7 says, provide for public outreach about the need for affordable housing and the vision for the future of housing in Orleans, or something like that.
Yeah.
Can we make that a second part of that sentence? Because I think that is where we are right now. I think that's why every time I say this housing study is old, I don't think it's old. I think it met the need at the time we did it, and we took action on it. So I think now we have to look at it in terms of what we need now. So I
I
think
guess
the
about
word
the
vision
housing-
can come in.
My guess about the goal that was
I'm
set
sorry.
is not so much based on what the need was, but more on what the consultant imagined we might be able to accomplish. And we can accomplish it. And so now what?
Mhm. All right.
Rich had his hand up.
Nancy?
Nancy
So-
Rich
I'm
had
sorry.
his hand up.
I'm trying to write something. Sorry, Rich.
It's okay. I'm just thinking about how, Nancy, when you went to, I think you asked Charlie from Penrose about the total applications from the Eastham project. And I think we'll learn a lot from how many applications are processed at once the building is done and whenever they do those applications. So there's going to demonstrate a lot of need just in what they, what we've built, what it can handle, and who's applying.
Sure. That'll be another good indicator.
So I think this is like a goal that doesn't have to be solidified even in the charge now, but we can piece together all the, economic development pieces and everything else that's going on and try to accomplish that sometime this fall or as we get there, and have those conversations all summer.
Sounds good to me. Are we okay with this? George, do you want to fine tune this a little bit, or you want to work with Marcia and decide, or do you want to just leave it the way it is with these couple of additions? How do you want to, what do you want to, I'd like to,
I wrote it up while you guys were talking.
I love
might.
that.
Hello?
Yes.
You there? Okay.
Your screen's
Your
green.
your video's not moving, so I thought you were gone. So I thought we'd just, in the first paragraph, add something that says to maintain 10% of the housing stock as affordable housing for households, and work toward creating housing opportunities to meet the community needs, including all age and income levels, to support residents and the workforce needs of the local economy. That might be too much, but I can kind of wordsmith this over time and have it for you. I don't think you're pressed to have your charge changed in the next month, but you should get it in place. And then I wrote up, I just captured what you said, Nancy, about number 7. So we provide for public outreach and community engagement about the need for affordable housing, and the need for different housing types is reflected in the opinions of residents. And since I got the floor, that's all I wanted to do. But since I got the floor, come September 15th, I believe the town will take ownership of the Governor and Prince property. And we'll get serious about what we're going to do with that, because we'll be paying interest on the short-term borrowing in anticipation of long-term borrowing, possibly or not. I would think if you could use the summer to do some kind of opinion-based outreach to develop a contemporary expression of what residents of Orleans think is the most important areas of housing to address now, given where we are right now, you put yourself in a pretty strong position to advocate for housing when the Governor Prince property is studied and comes up. Doesn't that sound like a good use of time? Notwithstanding it's summer, we don't want to do any of this stuff,
Yeah. Are you talking about a survey or a group discussion?
I don't know, whatever. surveys are kind of impersonal and they're never random because random people don't respond. I don't know. I mean, I'll leave it to you guys to see how can you get the views of 500 residents, say, over the course of the summer, that we can compile into some statement of this is what the residents of Orleans said they want compared to what the actual needs are, and then find some happy median that meets our interest. Because I find that the more I learn about housing projects and what can and can't be built, I slot my mind goes into categories of, well, we could do a tax credit project, or we could do a habitat project, or we could do some infrastructure and try to get a developer to build a subdivision, you know. That's not actually necessarily meeting the exact need of the community. It's meeting a housing type based on the available funding and programs that are out there. And I think I like what where Fran started. This is a good time to take a breath. You've already done something really big, and you're not going to do anything really big aside from the Governor Prince for a while now. So like, you should hone and refine what you want to go after. That's my piece.
I think that's good advice. And I think we need to respond also to, Marcia mentioned it before, and it's come up, it came up at town meeting, it's come up at every meeting we've had, the need for housing for families, the need for and other kinds of housing. And also the other thing that came up was why I know why we're putting everything downtown, because we have sewers and all those things, but why are we putting everything downtown? And that was a question that's come up several times. So I think maybe at one of our meetings, we could probably do a good brainstorm about the kind of questions that we've heard. And then from that, we could develop a good outreach idea that might, and how we could come up with how we could do that. And maybe invite do some focus groups, because I think, you know, I think we're skillful enough as a group at this time that we could run a focus group if we could get people to come to it. I think we could do that from our knowledge. So yes, that sounds like a great plan. All right. So you want me to delay? I don't really want to delay the charge. I really want to get the charge done, because I think I don't think any of that stuff really does impact the outline. I don't think we're going to, as you think there's anything else in this specific that's missing right now, except for our knowledge base? Because it seems like we have the questions, we don't have the answers to a lot of these. So is there any other item beside of these 10 that you would like to add? Anything else? Shelley?
I have a question about some of the things that got left out and why they were left out. Looking at the old one, number 6 and 5 and 6, I'm assuming those responsibilities went to the trust.
Sorry, I got the wrong paper here. So, yes, 5, 6.
Okay. But I also don't understand.
And
Well,
8.
it's number 4 in the old one about review and recommend zoning bylaw amendments. I guess we're still doing that.
Yes, that's still on there.
Oh. But number 6 on the new one says review comprehensive permit applications. Are we doing that?
I believe that is a very legitimate role for the housing committee when applications come along.
Yeah, I think so too. But okay, so we haven't done it, but you think we should be doing it.
We had did it. We did it with Penrose. We
Yeah.
didn't personally review them, but we looked at them, right?
And the last
Oh,
time there was an outside 40B that came in, the housing committee took a formal role and made recommendations to the Board of Appeals.
Okay, and we did support the zoning board through our committee as well. Okay,
Okay, so I guess the phrase comprehensive review, the comprehensive permit application doesn't compute for me in terms of what that activity is. So if it's reviewing the plan when somebody's got one, then I see that that's by
okay.
the end.
And so then, so that we took off the grant money, banks, and then we took off purchasing condominiums, mixed-use developments, all those things. I guess 'cause that becomes the trust job.
How about in the old one, number 1, the A and B parts, particularly the A part? Are we? That's been dropped and I'm curious as to why, because it seems to me that, I don't know anything about A, I didn't understand that part, but B, it seems to me that's something that we could be focusing on as potential housing.
Yeah, if I may, there were some term affordability restrictions on a couple of properties in town that had old mortgage subsidies. When the mortgages ran out, those are no longer affordable units. B,
Is that not ever going to happen again?
no, because we don't do term restrictions anymore.
Okay.
And preventing the foreclosures, I mean, that kind of falls in my lap usually when there's a property that's under duress. We try to find a qualified buyer as quick as we can. I have no qualms with leaving that in. It's probably more of a trust activity since they actually have the wallet in this case and can step up if necessary to prevent, they have the ability to take the preventative measures.
And who took care of the West, like when West Road, when that came on to keep, there was a West Road property, remember? And we wanted to make sure it got sold as affordable housing again.
Yeah.
Who took care of that?
CHAPA is the managing agency for those affordable units. And when a unit comes up, they actually contract with Housing Assistance Corporation. And the town of Orleans actually has a policy that we will use Housing Assistance Corporation to market units and identify qualified buyers. So that works well. We have not lost a deed restricted affordable unit since I've been here, except for those term restrictions that expire. So, I mean, so far so good, but I'll tell you, you get that senior housing where there's an asset limit and yet a mortgage payment of, $1,200 a month. It's really hard to find that. It's a narrow band of residents who qualify for those. So thus far, we have been able to continue them. In fact, the owners at, was it 19 West? No, not 19, across the street of former Wise Living. They approached the town about getting rid of some affordable units there because they couldn't market them. I think they got lazy and didn't want to market them. So,
Okay,
so
so
far so good.
I think that's sort of, it's included in the preserve existing affordable housing stock, all that. Do you think so? I think so.
I think so.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted to keep, Shelley? Was there anything else you wanted to keep?
We didn't lose anything we needed to keep, so thank you.
Okay. All right, well, I think that we made some good effort on that. The input is good. Maybe we'll have one more draft that we'll send around to everybody to be sure that it appeals to you all. Okay, maybe we can vote on it at the next meeting. All right. Or we could vote to approve the draft when we see it. I don't know which, but I think that'll be fine. All right. Any other comments on that topic? Okay, good. Fran, it's your turn. You can talk for a little while.
This will be brief. I just wanted to share this article that came out a while ago and hit me about preserving moderately priced homes that in this case are often being torn down in Minnesota, Minnesota City. And rebuilds are going for high prices and or being rented. And we've talked many years about how can we preserve our moderately priced homes so that they don't fall prey to the investors who want to do short-term rentals or to just lose them to more high-end people who may be seasonal as opposed to year-round residents. So that was behind some of what I was hoping Brad Hinote could collect for data on those moderately priced houses that we have here in Orleans. And then once we have that data, we might figure out what kind of programs do we want to offer? What can we do? And this was an interesting program. It was a nonprofit trust, land trust, that sent out letters. How many? Something like 3,200 letters to homeowners of moderately priced homes in a certain region, and asked if they wanted to sell their home to the trust. And so the trust would buy the homes, maintain ownership of the land, and sell the house for a moderate price to someone who qualified by income level, and did some repairs for the houses along the way. But so it was a nonprofit. It collected the land and it sold the houses for moderate prices and preserved the housing, year-round housing opportunities for people of more moderate income ranges. So it's an interesting program. I don't know that it's something that would fit for us, but I just thought we're going to be in the process, I think, now that we have a breathing space maybe to look at some things more generally. And I think that we want to probably be more clear about what are the kinds of programs we can create that will fit in Orleans. And this I just thought was an interesting example of one that may or may not fit, but it's an example that we might look at and expand our thinking about these kinds of things.
Do you think this would be something we'd bring to the trust after we came up with some ideas?
Well, I assume that when we get our data and when we see what our aspirations are somewhere down the way, we're going to be thinking, well, what can we do? What are the kinds of programs that are going to help fulfill the needs for our town?
Any comments or questions for Fran? Shelley?
I really like this idea. And as you know, I did a little bit of research a long time ago about some home buying programs around the Cape, but I think we've done a great job of preparing to address the issue of rentals. We have not done much to help the people who could be buying homes if the homes were affordable. And I think this is, one approach that we could be taking. I was doing a little research on the Conservation Trust website, and they have a similar thing about conservation land, in the sense that they're using nonprofit money or donated money to buy the land. I've noticed that several of the plots that are up for purchase right now have 5 buildable lots and 1 existing house. And we've talked about the existing house, and they're trying to work with that, but I'm not sure what that means, 5 buildable lots, but it seems to me that it raises the question in my mind about whether we could begin to use conservation land, still preserving it as conservation land, but find a way to maybe use some of it for housing, just using the idea of the home is owned, but the land is not, that remains in conservation. So that might be, I kind of married those two concepts.
We couldn't do that
For
with
fun.
land that's already in conservation, but as moving forward, we could partner with the Orleans Conservation Trust in terms of sharing a property where housing is in one area and open space is in another area.
Okay.
And it could be part of the commitment or the guideline that the people who buy that house have to, allow public access to a certain area of the property, or through their property to get to the conservation. I think there's all kinds of guidelines that could help us to preserve the conservation part of that.
Okay, well, one thing we are good at is ideas. We do have lots of good ideas. It's a question of putting them on priorities and just sitting down. I think everybody is listening to meetings and reading things and everything that we learn, we bring to this group. And I think this is why it's become a rich working relationship with everybody because of that. So I thank you. To be continued again, but that's okay. That's what this meeting is sort of about, is where do we go from here? So there's no shortage of pathways, is there? Okay. I just, I'm just had an agenda item about the use of the affordable housing flyers. I hate to see paper wasted. We had 500 printed. As you know, only 200 people came to the town meeting, and most of them only took one per couple. So we have a lot of those flyers left. And originally I liked them because they had a lot of good information about affordable housing in general on the back. And I still think they're usable, even though the other side is Penrose, because Penrose is not, it's not there yet. So it's still coming. So do you have any ideas what we could do with these flyers? Or save them for our community meeting in the fall? I don't know. Anybody have any ideas? Andrea?
I would put them in town hall and in the library. I mean, where people go, and let them pick them up.
We're not advocating at this point. It does still say Article 17 on it, but I think that would be okay as far as the information is all correct. Shelley?
You could just put across a stamp across the Article 17 part and say pass, so that people would know it passed and that it's coming, but they'd get all the information, not only about the project, but about the affordable housing needs as we presented it on the other side. I'll do the stamping.
I'll help you.
Anything else? We agree with that idea? Is that okay? It's not an advocate now. It's just information, right, George? So I think we're okay. All right. Okay, Shelley, that'll be good final activity for you. And I'll help you. I'll help you too. I think that would be a good idea, and we'll save some for the fall in case we have some meetings. So you think the library and the town hall would be the best places?
Probably.
All right, thank you. Approval of minutes from May 4th. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve the May 4th minutes.
Second,
Second.
is there any discussion or any corrections or additions? By roll call. Bill,
Aye.
Fran,
Aye.
Shelley,
Aye.
Nancy James,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Nancy Wren, aye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 0. Okay. There's some question regarding whether we need to go back to in-person meetings next month, or we're still going to be allowed to go to Zoom meetings. So I think it's going to be decided probably by a select board tomorrow, maybe what the requirements are. But I was just going to take a little poll here in case we have a choice. How many people want to continue with the Zoom meetings, or who would like to go back to the Skakit room? Remember that room? And meet in person. So, and then if we have an option, we'll go by what we think. If we don't have an option, I'll tell you, and then we'll have to meet at the town hall. So, Fran,
I would vote for staying on Zoom because it gets on channel 18 and people watch. And that's a way that we share information. When we met at the Skakit room, no one ever came, hardly ever came to our meetings in the Skakit room.
that's a good reason. Anybody else?
Is there filming available in Skakit room? Because other committees would be able to be recorded and be on channel 18.
There is in the Skakit room, but it's a single mic system. And it's not a good pickup.
Okay.
Any other opinions?
I don't have a problem with staying on Zoom, but it would be nice to get together from time to time.
Hmm.
I'm, just speaking as a newer
Right, we
member.
never get to go to a meeting yet.
Never been in the same room with all of you. That would be nice, but yeah, so.
Well, I think if we could do this plan to come up with a survey or something, a project, I think it would be really nice to all be in the same room and pass paper back and forth and do it like we used to do when you had a project. So I personally would just like to say that I give us a lot of credit for having done a lot of paperwork and activities via Zoom. And I think you should all pat yourselves on the back for that, because it's not easy to do some of the projects we did, the community engagement, the flyers, all of those things that we've accomplished in the last few months, as you know, passing back and forth and doing it all electronically. So congratulations to all of us. And what do you say? So how many people would like to stay on Zoom at least through the summer? If it's possible, just raise, I'm not gonna take a vote. Can you just raise your hand? Stay on Zoom? 1, 2, 3, 4. And who would like to go back to meeting in person this summer? Okay, then I think we're gonna maybe have the option through the summer, and I think that'll be great. And then maybe we can have something to look forward to in September to go in the same room. I know they're gonna have some trouble getting everybody back in the organizational field, so I think that'll be good.
It would be nice to change to have the meeting in Zoom or in person, depending on the type of meeting. If we're going to be bantering back and forth and brainstorming, it's going to be better to be in a group, like not on Zoom. But then when we do other things, Zoom's kind of, you know, with recording everything, it works.
Okay. Somehow I felt that this meeting was going to be, everything was going to be decided, and it seems like everything is almost decided, but not quite. So that's all right. Fluidity is good. Is there anything else anyone else needs to, our next meeting is scheduled for July 6th. I guess that's okay. It's after 4th of July, correct? You'll be all right with that? Okay. And I have no idea what the topics will be. I was going to talk about a little about the 10%, which we also talked about, and maybe some other ideas for community engagement. I think maybe that could be our 2 topics for the month of July, unless something else comes up. Also, I just mentioned, you got the invitation from Habitat. Did you all see that invitation for June 9th? It's just it's a courtesy to the people who supported this idea. It's not going to be ready. The house is not going to be ready, but Beth Wade felt that it would be nice to have the people who supported this to come and have a little visual. So can you have an idea if you're going to be coming or not? So who thinks they'll be able to come to that? It's 4:30 on June 9th. Fran, Nancy, I'll be there. Bill. Okay. Hopefully we'll have a nice little turnout and just get to see it. It looks really nice. It's a cute little place, and the mother and her daughter are so ecstatic and working so hard on this that it's just a pleasure to
Is it
know.
open to the public? Is this an open invitation?
No, it's open to anybody, to the 3 committees,
Okay.
Affordable Housing Trust, George, the planning department, Marcia, George, Select Board. I think it's not a general open house, mostly because of they're still working with COVID, even though the
Right.
world seems to be changing. So I think it's just a thank you to the municipal partners who help support this. So I thought it was a nice idea, and we can just go and look at it and go home. All right. Anything else for the good of the cause? Would someone like to make a
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Second,
Second? Roll call. Bill?
Aye.
Bill Stockert? Fran McLennan?
Aye.
Shelley Dawson?
Aye.
Nancy Jane?
Aye.
Richard Kendall?
aye.
Nancy Wren? And once again, Shelley, we're going to miss you. You certainly can come back.
So
You
much.
can re-up if you'd like to.
Thank you, Shelley.
All right.
It's been great.
Thank
working with
you.
It's been a pleasure to
And-
serve with all of you.
And we always take emails. If you have any bright ideas or so you see something else, I'd be glad to hear it and share it with others. So please stay connected with us, okay?
I will do that. Thanks.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Bye.